What's up, friends and professionals? Welcome back to episode 2, season 3, Modern Lending Podcast. Why the old TV, you ask? Why the old retro intro? You're going to have to stay tuned to the season to figure out what's going on. Today, I'm going to be interviewing the best Hanson, bringing on my sister. If you've been paying attention or if you have not, season 3 is all about stories. In mortgage lending, it's hard. What we do is hard. What you do as a loan professional is super hard. And oftentimes, we don't open our eyes up to perspective and get that little dose of reality to help us get through this. So telling stories is a wonderful way to relieve tension, let everybody know we're all dealing with the same stuff, and hopefully learn something, get motivated, or be inspired through all that. So I'm going to bring on this gal who is the number 6 purchase producer at Loan Depot, who has traveled across the country and done this, achieved Circle of Chairman's Elite recognition in multiple states, not countries, but that's a whole other thing. She's number 14 overall in the company in production, funding already in August over $100 million. So this person's doing some work, and it's because she's the best Hanson there is. So without further ado, let's bring on Kristin Hanson. All right, Kristin, welcome to the show.
Hey.
I'm actually
a little intro.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually a little afraid of what stories are going to be coming out of this conversation.
Oh, all the good ones.
We're going to just go for it. So, and by the way, if people are jumping in and watching live, thank you. Welcome to hang out with us. Ask questions. Feel free to engage. Be part of this experience. And if you're watching in the future, just make some comments. Let us know. But so, Kristin, we're doing stories. And as you know, we come from a family of storytellers. And it just is part of our life. But you've also done some amazing things in business that are story worthy and that I'm really impressed by. I mean, our whole family is impressed by it. And so before we go and tell stories about how great I was as a brother and all the amazing things I did, we got to start with the first story for every mortgage professional out there, which is why the heck did you get into the mortgage industry? Like, you have so much talent. You could have done anything.
I tried so hard to not do it. I was in grad school getting my master's in marriage family therapy. And then the guy I was dating, who's now my husband, decided he wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And his first job was in Abilene, Texas. And so we moved there and we were both working 2 jobs. And then
what were you working? What was your job?
What? Zales in the Mall of Abilene. And then also as like a runner at a title company. Yep. And he was working at Starbucks and as like a 3rd string reporter covering high school football. Super good. So we were there for a year and then he got a job in Bakersfield. And I had dropped out of getting my master's because it's state specific, and I figured that me and my future husband were going to be moving a lot for his job to different states. So, it kind of just fizzled out. And when we moved to Bakersfield, I honestly, the only reason I started in the mortgage industry is because I hated job interviews. I was so afraid to go to an interview because it's like, well, what'd you do in school? Studied psychology. Like, where does that, and I didn't have my master's. So I called Dad and I was like, I don't know what to do. I need to find a job. And he's like, there's a branch there. Just go and we'll get you a job. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I don't have to do an interview. I'll just get hired. That's it.
Sucked in. Right like that. And now X number of years later, how many years later is this?
That was in 2013, end of 2013.
And so from Bakersfield to Florida to $100 million producer, no big deal.
There was a stop in between. We were back in Texas after Bakersfield.
So why did you stay in the mortgage industry?
It turned out that, well, honestly, I mean, when we moved to Texas, because there was a branch there, it was like, I'll just keep doing this. I didn't, and I had a little bit of a resume, which you helped me with when I went to San Antonio. But that was the only thing I had experience in was, and I'd been licensed. I had gotten licensed in California. And so I just was like, all right, I guess they have to hire me because I'm already hired, with the company. So they have to let me work there at their branch that, in Texas. So, so I just was like, I guess we'll just keep doing this.
So Ashley's like, I feel you on the interviews. What other the interviews makes you nervous? What's the problem here? You're beautiful, you're talented. What's the issue?
Well, you're my brother, so you have to say that. But other people that I interview with don't. There's always been a huge fear of rejection, and you face that a lot in the mortgage industry, which is like crazy that I'm even doing this. But I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. I don't want somebody to tell me you weren't good enough or no, thanks for coming in. But I don't know. I was so afraid of not getting the job.
So the reason I asked that question is because it's connected, right? This fear of insecurity, this fear of rejection, it's all connected. And you even mentioned it in mortgage that there's so many mortgage professionals that I know that have the exact same issue, fear thing in their life. So many, all of us crazy mortgage people have this like fear of rejection. So how do you deal with it? How do you manage it? Because you can't do $100 million and if fear of rejection is stopping you from, you would never reach that level of success. So how are you dealing with it?
Well, for me, there has to be a fear that's bigger than the rejection to overcome it. So I had two things working in my favor. One is following behind you. So, right, I can't fail. I have to be amazing. I have to, just blow everybody's mind. And I can't be the Hanson that, sucked. So there's that pressure that I put on myself to not let down the family name in the business. And then, also paying bills. So when I moved to San Antonio, I was loan officer, and it was like I had to go hit up realtors and do all that stuff. And I didn't have a choice because I had zero business. I had nothing. So I had to go to all the chili cook-offs and all the Halloween, whatever, and I had to introduce myself and get my name out there and make relationships because I made no money. My commission was $0. So that out the fear of those two things were like, well, like if you get rejected, you get rejected, but you don't have, the other options are worse.
Interesting. Well, as we talk about this kind of stuff, how did you start over in 3 different markets? How did you go from Bakersfield to Texas to Florida and figure out how to maintain winning Chairman's Elite and now breaking through 100 million by August? How did you deal with all that? How did you do it?
I think a lot of it was luck, although I think my manager / partner / boss would say that it's not luck, but I got put in some pretty good positions. In Bakersfield, I was, a production assistant. And then when I got licensed, I was allowed to go out on my own. And I don't know how I did. I showed up, I had, lunch and learns, I did all that stuff. And then in Texas, I had moved there. I wasn't really doing much. And then we had it wasn't quite a joint venture then, but we had a builder relationship, and they were like, hey, you're not making any money. You are like the low man on the totem pole. Go sit at this builder because everybody else is bringing in money and you're not doing anything. So I was like, okay.
Well, hold on a second. You're framing it up from a lens that's being humble. Most of the opportunities I've seen you get as somebody who's followed your career come because you work your ass off.
Right. Well, so when they presented this builder opportunity, I said to the hiring manager that was going to, train me and stuff, I was like, hey, I'll work hard. I'll show up and I'll do the work, but I have no idea what I'm doing. like, and I don't want to screw it up, and I don't want to like lose this account for everybody that's been doing it. Like, I was so scared. And she said to me, like, like, it's okay. I got you. Like, I'll take care of you. I'll teach you. You'll be fine. And I was like, okay, but like, and I'll do everything you tell me to do. And what I would do, and my battery's running low. So let me.
And she's left me. When you bring your sister on, she's gonna do this to you. What Kristin won't tell you while she charges her phones, and I can tell you the real scoop on her, is she's a relentless competitor. And even though she has the same fears and insecurities that we all have, she drives forward through them and just does what everyone does to get through them, which is just deal with it and move on and go ahead and perform. And so one of the things that has been impressive to me in her career, watching her as a brother from the sidelines, was that she has this unrelenting work ethic. And for anybody out there that has managed people or is aspiring to manage people, sales managers, branch managers, if you see somebody in your organization who works hard, she'll come back in a sec. When you see somebody in your organization who works hard, you realize that that person is worth every single cent in the world, because sometimes you can't make someone want to work hard. And so as you listen to her story and as she pops back in and as we talk through it all, she'll be humble about that. But the reality is, when you work hard and you drive forward, you get huge rewards. She calls it luck. It's not luck. It's the universe bending around to support somebody who's put themselves out there and is willing to work hard. And so she's popping back. And I just said really bad things about you.
Okay, I was like, did you have some good filler to put in there while my computer
I told some really bad stories. So
anyways, so I had this opportunity, and this woman, totally like trained me and was there for me and caught me when I fell. And I was able to do a lot of business and make Chairman's Elite and really learn the business in a super fast time frame, which I preferred. Like I like going from 0 to 100. So it was really good. And I had a branch manager there that was also super helpful. I would just come into work and sit at her desk across from her and just work, and then be like, what does this mean? How do I do this? And she would just be like, okay, move it there, go there. Nope, you put, and she just let me sit there and ask her questions all day long. I had my own office, but I never sat there. I sat across from my manager.
So how many years now have you been in business industry as a loan officer?
Well, I guess really 2014 was like the start. And then I took a year off for stem cell transplant. So
we're going to talk about that.
6 years, because one was a year off.
So you're 7 years, 7 years, you're $100 million producer. Do you feel like you know everything now? You're good? No. Why?
No, it's unbelievable. I still get these scenarios where people are like, hey, this is my situation. And I'm like, how do I not know every situation? It's amazing the amount of differences that still exist in loans. Everything is a puzzle, every single one, all the time. There's always some random something that I'm like, I have not dealt with that before, so I don't know.
Okay, so let's tell some stories. In the 6 years, 7 years of business, lots of things have probably happened. You've moved into different places. You've had lots of different experiences. What are some moments in your careers that stands out as formative, aha, or transformative moments that you can remember?
So the first one is when I was a production assistant in Bakersfield. The woman that I was working under was tough to deal with, and very sporadic and kind of, she was kind of out of control, and I felt very afraid sometimes to come to work because it was like walking on eggshells.
Yep.
And whether I got a bonus or not depended on if she decided to work that month or not, and it was really awful. And so one day I just, she had lost her, gotten upset about something and threw some papers at me and, stuff that's like not okay.
Okay.
And I packed up my desk and I put everything in my car without anyone seeing me. And I told the branch manager that I was leaving. And she said, well, why don't you go out on your own? And, or she said, let's go to lunch. And so we went to lunch and we were sitting there and I said, I've told you that I'm having trouble with this loan officer. I think that she's, problematic and I won't do it anymore.
Yep.
And she said, well, why don't you go out on your own? And I was like, okay, I will. Because if I were to get one loan, I think I was making $12.50 an hour working for this lady and getting like yelled at constantly. And it was like, if I just did one loan, I would make more than I was making and I wouldn't have to deal with her. So I said, okay. And it was interesting because while we were at lunch, this lady behind me turned around and handed me her card and she said, you call me when you're ready. And it was a realtor.
Yeah.
It's like so coincidental, but she heard me talking and my determination to be well and be successful. And so, I felt like that was kind of like a sign.
Yes.
And so we went back and then, and I ended up making, 6 figures as my first year as a loan officer.
How, why? People, and you just said that so easily, but like, what do you attribute that to?
I had just gotten diagnosed with MS in the end of 2013. And I went through a really rough patch of like depression and just trying to come to like acceptance with the fact that I had whatever this was. And I was, in a new city, new job, all that stuff. And I went to, a sales mastery event that Todd Duncan hosts. I went with you and Dad was there and I heard Hal Elrod. He was one of the guests and honestly, I sat there and I listened to all these people talk about how great they were and how much business they did and how they,
totally.
were on vacation, the majority of the year and life was great. And I was like, yeah, but you don't have MS. You don't have, you're not constantly worried that you're going to be disabled somehow. Like your life didn't just get thrown in the trash, And then I hear Hal talking about his story, and he, spoiler alert, gets in this car accident when he's, 21 and they tell him he's never going to walk again. And his reaction was, if I'm going to be in a wheelchair, I'm going to be the happiest person in the wheelchair. And I was like, what the, who says that, especially at 21? Because I was like, I don't want to be in a wheelchair. I don't want to have to, experience that. But then he talked about how he overcame it and what he did and his book, Miracle Morning and all this stuff. And so it hooked me. I got his book. I started doing Miracle Morning. And I do believe that when you manifest, positivity and goodness and things like that, that you attract that and you bring that. I don't practice that anymore. I'm really rather negative, but back then, it was something that was really instrumental in me having, because I would motivate myself in the morning with Miracle Mornings, saying like, okay, like you're going to get a business, you're going to get a lead, you're going to do, people like you, like that. Stuart Smalley, anyways. So that really helped me overcome something that I wasn't prepared to, I didn't have the tools to deal with until I had heard that from somebody else.
So you mentioned you got diagnosed with MS, and I obviously, I knew we were going to talk about this before, we went live, because I want you to share about that a little bit, because mortgage industry is super hard. We talk about this, we joked, but it is hard. And if you're going to be a career mortgage professional, it takes a lot out of you. I joke that mortgage years are like dog years. Like you go through 1 year of mortgage, it's about 7 years at another job, because it's taxing. You take out, especially people like you and other great originators who put yourself out there. Like you're personally responsible to these loans. You live it and breathe it. That's why people use you and trust you. And so it's hard. But then all of a sudden on top of that, you lump MS, and you just touched the story a little bit, but it feels like that would be very overwhelming. And then the other thing is, and I won't remember the years, but I think you're celebrating 16 years sober, 17.
I have 15, so January will be 16.
January 16 years sober. That's incredible. So you have alcoholism, MS. You have two lovely bulldogs.
And I'm married because you're not really pitching a good advertisement here.
Well, God had to pull you down a little bit because you're too smart and too pretty. So he had to be like, okay, you can't have all these things. But like, this is serious. This is serious, like hardship. That's serious shit.
Yeah. Can you?
So, yeah, you can. I mean, I don't try not to swear too much, but you can swear a little bit if you really want to.
Okay.
So, but like, how do you deal with? How have you dealt with this, and still crushed records, top 1% originator? How are you balancing this whole thing?
I do have a mortgage coach. And I think that helps me because when I freak out or I say, oh my God, I messed this up, or, oh, I didn't get the response I thought I would get, she helps me normalize it, like that's what happens. That's okay. Or she'll say like, this is the boundary that you need to set. Because every time I move to a new market, I have to like start that hustle over, and then I'm breaking my back and I'm working 7 days a week and I'm answering every phone call and I have no life because I have no friends because I just moved again,
Yeah.
So it's like I might as well just work. The sort of extra work that I would be doing does help to distract me from, my MS or whatever's going on. I don't have to think about the fact that I have MS if I'm constantly like juggling a million loans. But I think it just, I think I just found like a groove at some point. And I think this only comes with time and to where I can say like, I don't work, like I'm off. So I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm not going to reply to the email. I'm only going to work the days that I'm supposed to work. And I'm also not going to work 10 hours on those days.
Yep.
So learning to say no it's still hard, but that's, having a coach for me was something that, helped me hold myself accountable. I am like a total like teacher's pet. So when you have a coach that says, okay, here's the things that you need to do today. Like you have to make 5 cold calls or you have to call your database. Like I don't want to call her in a week and be like, I didn't do it, like I can't be that person. So it helps me personally to have somebody that I'm supposed to be accountable to help me set my goals and do the things, and because she's been in this industry for a long time, she's had all the experiences that I come up against. So she can say, this is what I did, or this is what you should do, oh yeah, this happened to me. And then I'm like, okay, I trust her advice, I guess. And can I say who it is?
Yeah, of course you can.
Hope Borman. Hi.
Yeah, shout out to Hope. She's awesome. Yeah, let's give Hope love.
Yeah, well, and it's not just mortgage. I mean, I share my personal life with her too. So when I struggle with things, she like part of my goals aren't just like work related. It's like, okay, so you wanted to do this for like self-care, or you want to do this because, and that's important because I do really well with structure, but I can't implement the structure myself. I'm not good with that. If I'm left to my own devices, I'm out of control.
Well, I want to unpack something on a thing you blew over, which I think some loan officers out there struggle with and would really appreciate hearing your insight on, which is the boundaries you've set up to manage your business. So you mentioned today's a day off. On your day offs, you don't work. You don't return emails. You're not holding to your phone. So some loan officer out there is like, no way, can't be true, because a lot of loan officers are reactive. Meaning, if somebody's calling me for a pre-qual right now, it's like I'll drop everything. My kid pushed me in the pool and go take the pre-qual.
Right.
So how have you? What was your moment share the story of your process coming to this, like, no, I'm going to set these boundaries. What led you there, and what's been the result of it?
Well, to be honest, it was once I got to a point where I was doing a good amount of business, my referral partners were, solid, and they trusted me and I trusted them.
What's a good amount of business to you?
Huh?
What's a good amount of business? What does that mean to you? What
was that?
Like,
top producer kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chairman's
so, once I felt established in the new market that I was in, whether it was Bakersfield, Texas, or Florida, then I'm like, okay, now I worked really, really hard to get to this point. And I did take those phone calls and I did those pre-quals, and I ignored my husband, and I was on the phone on vacation, and, and then I, worked. Yeah, definitely. And I burned out like crazy. And so then once I got to the point where I felt like the business was coming pretty steady, I was like, okay, now I'm going to set the boundaries, because my referral partners know that I'm going to get to them as soon as possible. Oh, I'm going to close their, so I will say, I wish it was something that I could have just started and did from the beginning, but it wasn't. I had to, for me, I felt like I had to work and answer the phone all the time. And then I said, with the help of a coach, was like, okay, no, you don't. Like, you just don't. And I'm not perfect at it. Like, sometimes somebody will send me a thing and I'll see it on my phone and be like, but it's definitely a lot better than it was. And I do say on my voicemail, like, hey, my days off are this, and I work this, from this time to this time. If you call me after this time, you'll hear from me the next day or whatever,
I think that's an exceptionally mature structure in your business that a lot of loan officers aren't really willing to take on. But I want them to hear from your perspective. Is it okay? Can they have a life, or, are they just going to get dragged through the mud forever?
No, and I look at like my manager here in Florida. He's amazing, and he is like one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he does his job and he works. He puts in the hours, but then he also like spends time with his family, and he takes the days off, and he does stuff. And so I see that it's like, okay, he does it, and he still gets referrals and still is a top producer. And
is there a dog coming? Is Dudley coming?
Yeah. And he does everything really well, and he has these boundaries, and he doesn't need a coach. He can do this without somebody holding, he just is able to structure stuff himself, and he's really good at it.
So let's do this as we kind of move to a different angle here and start to kind of go into the fourth quarter of the podcast here. I would love for you to dredge up some stories that were formative for your life. I don't care when, I don't care what happened, I don't care what was going on, but I meaning it doesn't have to be mortgage related, but something that has happened to you that you lived through that has set the tone, so to speak, for the decisions you make in your life today.
Okay. So one of the things with MS that, in 2017, I did a stem cell transplant. Hold on.
I want Dudley to come on the show very badly. So
sorry, Dudley's out of control. So one of the treatments for MS was to do this stem cell transplant, and it's not FDA approved, and it's kind of like experimental, even though they've been doing it forever. So I don't know why they won't let people with MS have it. But, I had to get chemo, and I had to sit in isolation for like 20 days in this hospital in Chicago. And the chemo, I had to shave my head because all my hair was going to fall out. Right. And so right after that's when I took my year off, because I had to do stuff leading up to the stem cell transplant. And then afterwards I was a little immunocompromised. So I just like stayed in my house in San Antonio. But I moved to Florida when I, like 6 months after that. So I was bald. I was wearing a wig. in Florida. And I was so uncomfortable because now I have to go meet people and I'm wondering if they can tell I'm wearing a wig. And then do I have to tell them, oh, I had a transformative wig, you know, like going through all that and facing the rejection, right? Like my biggest fear.
It's even worse.
It was awful because it was so hot and humid and I had this big wig on my head. And you know, and it would like itch and it was not good. And I was so uncomfortable, but I had so much support. I had my coach, my branch manager, Steven Syrup. If you know him, he is the nicest man in the world. And he took me under his wing. I also would sit at his desk every day and be like, what is a jumbo loan? Like, how do you know, like, what do I do with this? And so patient and just, you know, he just helped me through everything. But it was like, okay, like this is my story, right? I'm wearing a wig. I'm recovering from this crazy treatment. I just moved here, but I'm a good loan officer. I know how to do a loan and I'm good at it. And, so something switched when I got to Florida, and maybe it was all the harsh New York customers that I got to get to deal with here.
Yes.
It was like, I'm really good at my job. I really care. And so you're welcome that you have me as your loan officer. You know, like it is a privilege to work with somebody who cares about what they're doing. Because there are a lot of people out there in the mortgage business that are just trying to make a buck and they really don't know what they're doing. And they send pre-quals out and the people aren't qualified and, you know, they lose. It's like, I'm really, you know, and that was something that Steven had to say to me like over and over again, like, you're a good loan officer. And I finally believed it. And so now setting the boundaries, all those things are easier because it's like, listen, I had to do this with a wig on, bald, brand new to Florida. Didn't know anybody. It's hot. I'm uncomfortable, but like,
there it is.
So whatever, like I'm doing your loan, you know, like, oh, like it didn't appraise, big deal. Like you're still going to get the house, you know, like we'll do a rebuttal.
Oh my gosh.
It just made the big picture, you know, instead of all the small little stuff, it was like, it's a freaking loan, you know, like nobody's dying, you know, and if I don't like missing close dates and it's very rare that it happens, but if it does, guess what? Everybody's still okay. You know, it's everybody, nobody's, you know, it is what it is. It's just, there's so many people involved in the process of closing on a house. Someone's going to screw up on every single loan. Whether it's title, appraisal, realtor, buyer, borrower, somebody's going to mess up, you know, and it's just not the end of the world. And I used to really think that it was, you know, until you go through life and you realize like, dude, I don't care that you're upset about the fact that you have to upload a new pay stub. Like I can't, that's what the rule is, you know, like if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else, but they're still going to ask you for a freaking pay stub.
By the way, for everyone that's listening to Kristin right now, what you don't understand or what's under the current of under the water here is Kristin and most great originators are very empathetic. You know, they care about the customer. They don't want the customer to be upset. We want people to be happy, but at the same time, your attitude, Kristin, of just give me a new bank statement. I'm sorry if that's making you upset, but we need to close, and this is not a big deal.
Right.
Well, I don't know how you top the story of wearing a wig in a new place and walking around bald, sweating, and trying to get realtors to talk to you. I'm laughing on the inside because I'm sitting here picturing some loan officer who's like, this is so hard to do loans. And I'm like, you have rates in the 3s and 2s. Shut up. You're not bald and you didn't have chemo and your hair didn't fall out. And I'm pretty sure you can handle it. Right. Somehow Kristin did it and did 100 million already this year. I think you can do it.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I know
it takes what it takes.
Well, come on, give me another one. That was a pretty good story. What else do you got? What else that has?
Okay, so that's mortgage related. I really want to say like, you know, I've had one of the things that benefited me the most out of anything is always finding a mentor.
Oh,
so
I like
in
that's good.
Bakersfield, I had like the best lady ever. Christy, I would go into, she would hand me a file and be like, here's a loan for you to do. I'm going to take half the basis points. You're going to take half the basis points.
Yep.
Go. And I take the file and I sit down on my desk and I'd be like, no idea what I'm doing. So I'd go back into her office and I'd be like, what do I do? And she would then tell me how to do the loan and still let me have half of the commission. Like she was just a saint, and she took so much time, which is something that's rare because she didn't owe me anything. And then the same thing happened in Texas. The manager for the builder account, I must have blown up her phone on a constant basis, just being like, what's that? And she was like, and teaching me stuff. And then, now with Steven, he's my partner. So yes, I've done 100 million, but I've done that with Steven, and he's amazing and he knows everything. So he's somebody that it's like, is there ever anything new? And he's like, no, he's seen it all. He knows the answer. He knows how to do it. So that's nice to have him on speed dial. But having, I came from a place of like, I don't know, you've been here longer, teach me, and then, and that was something that was instrumental in every part of my little career here. Every move, everything. I always reached out to somebody and said, tell me how you do what you do.
I love that, Kristin, because I think there's a lot of great originators out there who are listening in and who really need to hear that. And maybe they don't have a mentor today or a coach. And what is a theme throughout your experience and your career and your success has been being surrounded by good mentors and coaches and people in your corner that will push you, hold you accountable, love on you, share their wealth of knowledge. And so if you don't have a mentor right now or a coach, I think you need to go get one.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything left in the tank? We covered like massive amounts of earth today. So,
one thing about hard work and not getting special treatment and all that kind of stuff. When I got diagnosed with MS, it was November 2013. I had been working for what used to be iMortgage for a month. And before I got hired, I said, my whole family is going to Hawaii on a trip. And, I just want to make sure I can take that vacation, before you hire me. And they said, oh yeah, no problem. Like I cleared it with my boss. And okay. And then that was in September. And then in November, I got diagnosed with MS, and we were supposed to go as a family in December. And my manager said, you haven't earned any vacation. You're not going. And so you and dad and mom and Erica and everybody went except for me, who had just started this new job. And the manager, even though it was approved earlier, said I can't go. And I had just gotten diagnosed with MS, and she still said I couldn't go. And it was like, okay, this is what real grown-up jobs are. Like you don't get to just say like, Dad, hey, one of your branch managers is telling me I can't go to Hawaii after being at work for 3 days. And it was a wake-up call. And I was pissed.
My gosh.
And Dad didn't do a damn thing.
Oh.
He was like, see you, aloha, and you guys all went. And I'm sitting there with this MS diagnosis in Bakersfield, at this new job. But it was like, in a way, I'm grateful for that experience, because it's like, this is, people hire you and expect you to do a good job. And if you're not, then that's not right. You should work 40 hours a week if that's what's expected of you, and I think a lot of times, because loan officers are self-employed, maybe they don't work 40 hours a week, but that's fine. But then like complaining about the lack of production is like, it's one or the other. So for me, it really taught me a lesson in like what it means to be a hard worker and the sacrifices that you have to make. And, you know, I still don't like that branch manager that she's not with us anymore, but it was like, sorry, like you just got hired. You don't get to take a week off, you know? And that sucked, but that's the way I look at my job now. You know, if somebody would be like, hey, you want to go on vacation? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I have this going on. I can't do it.
So the more people get to know you, Kristin, the more that you are a radical inspiration for people. Number one, you've had things in your life that normal people would probably just break and just go away. And you've just figured out how to continue to carve your life through hardship. Then you've mastered this industry, which is insane, and have done incredible things in 3 different locations and continue to be one of the top performers at the company with no help from any Hanson ever. Because that's just how Hansons roll. You know, you got to eat what you kill. And so for the final bit here, what would you share for any originator out there that's kind of just starting? Is there some new blood coming in? What information would you share besides get a mentor and a coach? Because we already did that. What advice would you give them?
Yeah.
That's it.
I think I wish that I would have set boundaries earlier, because there's times and things that I can't get back that I would have wanted to, you know, but now that, like, you know, Casey and I are coming up on having a baby, I hope that I can be that, you know, use the things that I learned to not miss that time.
Yeah. I love it. Cool. You're awesome, Kristin. Love you, sis. Huge inspiration to a lot of people. So thank you for telling some stories and giving some people some perspective and all that fun stuff in a world of chaos and mortgages. So love you very much.
Love you too.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have some more guests on season 3 telling stories. Look forward to you guys joining us. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the internet.